Okay, I see number is increasing. So in the meantime, thanks everyone. This is a new Questel webinar. Thanks a lot to Melissa, which is our technical support. If you don't hear anything or if you don't see the screen or whatever, please post the questions and someone will help you. I kindly remind you that you will get a recording to this presentation afterwards, together with a copy of the slides that we use today. And of course, you find all our resources and all the webinars we have done on our dedicated pages. Let's start. So the topic for today is AI, action and ROI. We wanted to focus on online brand protection because we have the pleasure to have with us an external speaker. I introduce him. It's Otmar Kronthaler. Otmar is the Retail Brand Protection and Sustainability APAC Manager at Vivienne Westwood. And I guess all of you knows very well this brand. Together with me, Elena Galletti, Head of Trademark Services Architecture at Questel. We also have Julia Kotenko, which is our great Customer Success Manager working at Questel in the Online Brand Protection Division. So welcome, Otmar, and welcome again, Julia.
Yes, so thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure. So just a recap of the agenda for today. We will talk quite extensively together with Otmar and Julia about cross-channel anti-counterfeiting approach. We will check practical examples on where to allocate budget for brand protection purposes. We will also benchmark your approach, or let's say the usual approach that we see from clients and prospects against other players, the interaction between online and offline activities. And then we will explore a bit the latest trends in AI adoption. And then we will have the conclusions and Q&A. When it comes to Q&A, please, if you want to post a question, use the chat. And please also consider that we will have 2 polls during this webinar. So we would like to get a bit more feedback from the audience we have in front of us today. Let's go deeply in the first part of the webinar. We thought that the best would have been to start with a real case and real experience sharing. So I leave the floor to you, Julia, to introduce the topic and of course the conversation with Otmar. Today we have decided to have a more conversational approach rather than a simple listing of what we think is important for you to know.
Correct. Thank you, Anna. And it's going to be my pleasure to have this live, a different type of webinar, just talking about what lies closely to our hearts. And this is our brands. And in this case, I would simply start with what we know all. Of course, we know the word counterfeiting. It's nothing new. It's not the new kid on the block. It's been with us for decades. But I think what changed a lot is how it got evolved, how sophisticated it got, but mostly operations behind the counterfeiters. So once we used to know and also do our efforts for more like singular, we used to have some problems on this platform. There were some problems on one channel, sometimes with social media. So there were problems, but they were more dispersed, more sporadical. It became now more tactical, more sophisticated, connected between each other, starting with one shop, connecting, also due to technology and AI, because it facilitates the counterfeiters to spread widely, get better connected, collaborate with different, maybe some entities, but also have a solid and good established distributor and offline base, which is going to be as well a subject what we want to talk about. So when we talk about this new kid on the block, the counterfeiters, I think I might leave the floor to Otmar and tell me what do you know and how would you classify this counterfeiters, how it was and how it is now for you.
Yeah, I wanted to start with a quote that is ascribed to a famous CEO in the fashion world called Patrizio Bertelli, who is the husband of Michua Prada and the CEO of the Prada Corporation. And he said in 2012, famously, we don't want to be the brand that is not copied. which I think sort of sums it up, the fashion industry's approach to counterfeits and copies. Sort of 2012, which is now 13 years ago, 14 years ago. For example, in our case, we've always been counterfeited. We always knew that there are, there are people out there who copy our products. 15 years ago, we thought, it almost was like a sign of recognition. You almost have been a little bit flattered by it. And you didn't really take it too serious because it wasn't that damaging at the time. But as you said, Julia, with the new technologies and with the advancement, especially on the online sphere, I am not of a generation that is so savvy on the computer, but for example, the young generation, they know exactly how to open an online shop, how to go to platforms, what to do if your online shop gets shut down by an online protection company. You know how to take pictures of websites. You are able to create a website that looks like the original one. So that also hasn't been the case 10 years ago. There wasn't this advancement in the technological sphere for people who are in this case the sellers. The same applies to the producers of the counterfeit, because of how do you make clothes? How do you make jewelry? How do you make accessories? It is very much helped nowadays by machinery, by technical advancements. So the counterfeiter, it's more easy to counterfeit a ring than it was 12 years ago. 12 years ago, you needed much more skills in jewelry making, let's just say, than you need nowadays. Nowadays, you have a machinery, you have a computer program, and it helps you more. So in a nutshell, I guess if we would have done 10 years ago what we do now, we would have sort of contained the problem, but we didn't, because we didn't look at it it didn't damage us too much, and we sort of said yeah, and that was honestly almost like an approach to it that you felt, I wouldn't say flattered, I don't know I don't find the right word now in English, but you almost been like you think your brand is a good brand, that's why it's copied. And as Mr. Signore Bertelli said, you don't want to be the brand that is not copied. And nowadays it became much more of a problem. And nowadays you need to tackle it, and we have brand protection teams, and that didn't exist 10 years ago. And sometimes it is too late. It's clearly too late, because now the problem, spiraled out of control, and now you sometimes are fighting a monster, or and occurrences that you don't know how to handle.
True. And I think Elena also has something to add for that, how from her experience.
Well, it is true that I mean, when I think about the sentence that you have just mentioned, Otmar, about Prada, it remembered me the famous sentence from Coco Chanel: "If you want to be original, be ready to be copied." Yeah. And it's exactly the same concept. And it's true that in my former job, when I was a general counsel in-house, I was working for quite a famous brand for young generations, which was Franklin and Marshall. And at the beginning, it was a small company located in Italy, so the scope of the business was quite limited. When we started to see that there were similar products, of course, fake products in other markets, we understood that we became famous. And at the beginning, the reaction from the CEO and management was like, wow, that's great. We are there. We are now the big players. But then when you start seeing that the sales are going to reduce because there is too much on the market, and the market doesn't perceive anymore the distinction between original and fake, then you realize that you really need to invest in such activities. And it's true that you always consider a percentage as okay to be accepted, because there are some products which are very expensive. Probably the young generations know that they cannot afford the original one, so we are okay to buy a product like that. But in some cases, we are talking about products which can be very bad from a health perspective, or very, very similar also in terms of pricing. So there you start to see really a super unfair competition. So that's where it's true. We also started a lot of legal complaints about them.
Yes, that's the thing that also I mentioned before. So if some action would have been taken, let's say a decade ago, or even a couple of years ago, a lot could have been, of course, mitigated, avoided, improved, maybe stronger message given, because sometimes it's about give them the message. Sure, we know you're out there, but we also do some actions for that, and those actions could be also pretty radical, especially when you have this combination of online and offline, which is legal consequences as well, which is even a stronger message to it. So what we want to explain now here is that it is complicated, it is more sophisticated, but we are evolving together with technology. What we see now while working together also with Otmar, parallel to technology that detects, finds, assess, and advises on how to proceed, we never forget about one important thing, is the human approach. Because technology can be super advanced, it can find you a lot. AI, this hot topic on the market, AI, we all want AI. We do have AI, but I tell you one thing, I never really trust AI 100%, because everything that AI gives me, I'll look at it again. And then I look at it with Otmar again, right? Because we all have those calls together, but sometimes we have some profiles, some accounts, the things we find, because AI finds them, but sometimes AI is not always 100% sure if it's indeed counterfeit, if it's maybe just a fan, if it's maybe just a reseller. So, right, Otmar, we had several accounts that by the end of the day, we decided that it's not harmful.
I just wanted to sort of add in. I know we are talking about online brand protection, but going back to what could have been done 10 years ago, it's not only about how do you target the counterfeiter. It's sometimes counterfeit problems are created internally. For example, we are looking much more in our production. You know, you sort of make your product nowadays more counterfeit proof. You know, you have certain extras, you have certain signages, which of course only we know. Let's just say with jewelry, you know, there are certain tiny little details. You know, Series A has this kind of closure, Series B has a Vivienne Westwood little our logo printed on it. This Series C doesn't have the logo printed on it. So you immediately see, because as Julia says, we often very much ourselves, we don't immediately see, or the AI doesn't see if it is a counterfeit or a genuine product. So Julia often sends me images, is this a counterfeit or not? I personally don't see it. I have to send it to the relevant departments. So they have now their little cues to know, no, it's definitely counterfeit because of, this should be, the print should be golden. And here we have a little color range, and here we have a little line set, and like little details. So 10 years ago, also we didn't do that. So we also make sure that what can we do internally to make it more difficult for the counterfeiter, which doesn't, of course, prevent the person. Sorry, not that I jump too much around. We also have two kind of people who want. You have people who voluntarily buy a counterfeit. They know that they are buying a counterfeit. That's really nothing you can do against. But the real problem for us is a person who wants to buy a genuine product are cheated buying a counterfeit. And we have many occasions where our customer service team gets approached, or I bought a piece of item on this website, so and so, and I think it's not. Can you have a look at it? Which we then don't do. But this is then the real problem. People who intentionally buy a counterfeit because it's cheaper, because when you have a 30-pound necklace, it can't be the genuine thing. this is a different topic. So there are also two kinds of, how do you say, counterfeit customers, you know, the ones who say, oh, it's great, I found a good counterfeit, or the one who really, who really is very disappointed. He finds out, oh God, I bought a counterfeit and not the real thing.
It's very interesting. Sorry, Julia, to jump in, but related to what you said before about AI and the human approach that is needed. I think that what Otmar mentioned is quite interesting, because I also remember that when I was working in-house, it's true that online brand protection is a shared topic between legal department, IP, sales, marketing. You need to have a very close collaboration, and sometimes you can also use the fake cases that comes to customer sales department to also make sure that you have you transmit your values. Therefore, like saying, look, this product is fake, we are very sorry for you, you didn't buy it on the original store and so on, but maybe here you can get a discount on an original product and make sure that the next sale is done properly. And it's true that there is a lot of collaboration between departments, and information that you can get from a department can also be very useful to then base your next actions. So I completely agree that we all talk about AI and we are very enthusiastic about it, especially at Questel, we invest a lot on this, but it's true that you have to check the false positive. There is too much risk behind that. A big brand like Vivienne Westwood and others, they cannot risk their image.
Yes, correct. Because that's what we always try to differentiate. We don't do massive sweeps. We don't do massive cleanups where sometimes people say like, just want you go there and clean everything up, which for me is very dangerous, because exactly by that you clean up potentially just fan pages, resellers, vintage, or just a fan who may be reselling some items they used to own a little bit cheaper, potential official accounts that you forgot that they are official, and once taken down, it's not always easy to reinstate. So that's why I say this approach has to also be very cautious. So you have to, you know what you're doing, but you also be cautious about what you do. That's why we Otmar work quite a lot, where he has to, and his jewelry department, to revisit some items, because we want to be 100% sure, because we care about the fans, because that's also the image of the brand, and that was always, you know, the most of the brands stand for, what the fans love for, and it is for the attention we pay. So of course, eliminate the threats, but also be careful about what you're eliminating. And that of course is the right approach, careful approach, but also when needed, a bit aggressive when we see something really bad going out there. So, and I think when we talk aggressive, we can always refer to when we do this unified approach, when we, as online partner, do the first job. So we go there, we find listing, we do the investigations, we find the patterns between the shops, infringers, repeat infringers, those who redo again those actions, and we won't do something against it. But online is limited to a certain point, right? We can gather evidence, we can find as much as we can provide the proof, but then we need someone locally, right? If it's China, Indonesia, or somewhere else, we need someone with the jurisdiction to act upon your rights. And I think that's in play comes the offline action. And I think we had also several really nice successful cases when this approach of investigating a lot online first and then going to someone with expertise who's also partner, is already working with you, facilitated a lot. Maybe there's something you can add, Otmar. How was it experience for you when you have before? Because you also once mentioned that before you worked with someone who had only online approach, and now while you're working with a partner who has both online and offline. Maybe you can give you some insights to that.
Yes, we worked with a company that only has done online, and then we found out, because why is only online not good? Online is, as far as our team is concerned, the online part is basically done by you guys. You know, of course we are here to help and to, you know, like looking, is a counterfeit really, and going through the cases but what we are really interested in is to get to the producer of the counterfeit. We don't really there is always a seller, but who is producing it? Because if nobody's producing it, nobody can sell it. So that's when the offline part comes into play. And I would say the offline part is then the tricky one. The online part is, for us, the online part is easily understandable, is easy overviewable. There is a kind of trust. We have we give into Questel, and we get monthly report, and we know what they are doing. The offline report, then we are much more involved, because as soon as you become offline, you talk about budgets, you talk about lawyers, you talk about different jurisdictions. We had cases in China which are totally different than a case in Ireland. We had cases in Germany which are, again, totally different to a case in China. In our problem is we are operating, and many fashion companies are operating in China, of course. You know, not most of, but I think the majority of takings are nowadays done in China. This since the last 15 years. And a lot of counterfeiting takes place in this in China and in APAC countries, Asia Pacific, where of course you have a little bit a different approach to the legal system than we maybe are used. I don't know, I hope one can say the Western world or in Europe. You know, there is sometimes a lot of corruption. There is protection by the police. We had cases where you said, what the police said on Friday, we're gonna raid the warehouse, and then funny enough on Friday nobody was there anymore at the warehouse. So you wonder, how did they know that the police is coming on Friday? You know, but you are sitting in London, and you rely on an agent in China. The most, of course, factor is here budgets. You know, offline action costs a lot of money, lawyers cost a lot of money, agent on the ground cost a lot of money, and that's where you then go to your decision makers, you know, to the financial directors, by COOs who have to make these decisions. There, then sometimes it's a little bit an approach to, oh yeah, brand protection is a very big problem, and we have to tackle it. But when it comes to the money, it's a, but you know, this is then, it becomes then also very challenging for brand protection departments to get sort of the financial means that need to be made available. And of course, the more counterfeits, the higher the budget. So I have heard of budgets of big companies. We are not that, you know, we are not that of a big player in the industry. But you know, there are big fashion brands. They have, I think they have 5 or 6 already in their teams. They have real IP protection lawyers in their internal teams. They employed IP protection companies, online companies, and then. So this is when the budget questions comes into play. And just to very quickly, Elena, what you embarked on. First, brand protection ideally is integrated into the process. As you said, brand protection should have a say in production, in design. But you know, in reality, it's very seldom that the brand protection has a say. You know, designers are not very keen if a brand protection person comes around and says, you know, ooh, you have to be careful, you know, to do this T-shirt. You know, they are not so, especially with creative people. You know, fashion designers consider themselves as creatives. Some, you know, they want to be artists. You know, they don't want to be told by brand protection. You know, which is a little bit, you know, they think, oh, this is legal, and you know. But ideally, you should be integrated into these whole work processes, you know, from the beginning, because then you can take measures against it, which always in practice doesn't happen very often. It, you know, and this is also a process. It's an internal collaboration. So sometimes you wish almost. I hope I don't say anything too controversial. You know, you almost wish sometimes that the counterfeiter becomes a bigger problem, that the brand protection he becomes more important internally.
Yeah.
True. And I think that Otmar, is very interesting what you just said about the fact that designer needs to be, let's say, free of creating and free to operate. But it's also true that we have some we have some cases where companies would like to, because we always think about online brand protection, or mostly we think about online brand protection where there are fake products. Use online brand protection to also monitor what's out in the market, to listen to what's out there, and also to check where the original products go. So not only the fakes. And we had recently a case for more than one company where they're basically opening a sales period where they sell just a few products, particular products in that part of a year, you know, for 1 week, 2 weeks, or it's just a private sales for a few hours, and it's just dedicated to certain products. And what these companies have seen is that the people that could buy these products, which were limited people, of course, then they were reselling these products. And this was not allowed for their terms and conditions and so on. And so in some cases, some companies worked with a designer to make sure that on these products, there was something that could be broken when you open the package. So, and you could not resell it without this, because without these signals, or however you want to call it, it would not be anymore a genuine product, you know. So it's true that it's very rare, probably is more of a luxury problem, but it's true that sometimes this collaboration can also create some results.
True.
Yeah, I not to be too clever. You know, when somebody buys your product, you know, we have here, you know, this is a totally different thing. And also with you know, with discounting on, you know, but generally legally, if somebody buys your product, he can do with the product whatever he likes. And
yeah,
especially,
yeah, true.
Maybe you meant, you know, when it's present, or when it's very, very special, very, very limited editions, and you almost you invite your best customers, but still then I wouldn't know the legal basis for it. If you could, it's an interesting case. I never heard of it, that you sort of, it almost like looks like Banksy, that he destroyed his own artwork.
No, because it's true. I mean, legally, from a legal perspective, and we are not here to talk about legal aspects, but it's true. In this case, there are companies which are very interested in knowing where their products are going, and what is the chain and how they circulate.
For example, collaborations. We recently had a collaboration because we were working with a Japanese manga, with a comic called Nana. So we had a special collaboration, a Nana product. So we had a lot of counterfeits, you know, because of course the counterfeiters immediately jumped on it. Julia, well, she was confronted with let's say hundreds of products online, where we still don't know where they are produced. We are fighting one case which goes via a website in Ireland, so maybe we can trace the producer somehow, because the product all looks very similar. And Julia is gone.
I don't see her anymore.
Now she's back.
I'm here. My dog was barking, that's why.
and we had, I think, 80% of the products that was you know, legally bought in our shops, you know, the real product was immediately 80% being resellers, because they, you know, if you buy, you know, first you have to queue. It's very limited, but this, and it's a lot of young people. You can make a lot of money with reselling, you know, limited collaborations, and not just with Vivienne Westwood. I'm sure other collaborations are much more worthful. But you know, for example, when Louis Vuitton with Supreme, you have a limited edition of 300 T-shirts. You buy the real product, I think for 100 or whatever. Let's say 100. Just put a number on it, and you resell it a week later for 200. So you know, of course. But this is, for example, I would say, as a person, you don't wanna target these people. You know, it's a way of making money. These are young people. Also the resellers, you know, there is a lot of sometimes, you know, they have Instagram accounts. There is a lot of work in it, making the photographs. You know, they make little videos with the clothes on and blah blah. So you know, as Julia rightly said, you don't want to shut down a person like this, you know, because you almost, you know, he's making your brand look very good and your product, you know. So I know that some online protection companies, you know, they just let the AI run wild, and everything that looks like, you know, it gets shut down. But I think you really have to be very careful, because if you are a genuine reseller and you get cut down by the same, you know, by the brand protection company of the same company you're reselling, I think you would find it a little bit odd, or not?
Yeah,
So,
it's true. Yeah, it's true. I think it's, I mean, for companies that want specifically to act in this way, it's more a way for their marketing and communication department to understand what's going on, how they communicate the image brand. It's also a way to check the distributors, the parallel imports, and to also make sure that there is a clear distribution line. And there are some brands that, together with a pure online brand protection that detects fakes and abused, they also want to make sure that they have a full clean image and full and clear idea of where the goods are going. Maybe just conscious about time, because it's true that we have a lot of content, but I am not sure if we will cover them in the next 13 minutes. But
we only have 12 minutes left, I think.
Oh, yeah, this was a very live and interesting discussion. So I think that was very 30 minutes. Yes.
Maybe Julia, I will let you go further.
Yes. No, I think it's just a small recap to what we said again. We said it is very sophisticated nowadays. It's not as it used to be. The conceptions also changed a lot. We like to be copied, but let's say not overdoing with that, especially when it influences your reputation and your revenue, when it's bad fakes or harmful fakes, phishing sites. This is the things we don't want to. So of course, there's something you have to have a tailored approach, and we do have that, and I think that's most important. And importance of alignment as well. Yes,
can I ask you something? Yeah, can I ask you something, Julia? Because it's true that the title of this webinar is it's also about return on investment, and yes. And it's true that it was also something that Otmar was mentioning. I mean, you want to run your brand protection program because you also yes. want to recover damages. So I think that it will be great for the audience to hear a bit about what we have done together.
I think return on investment, it's when we speak, because what Otmar said, the budgets, this is always the hard part, because maybe you have already standard budget for the online brand protection, right? You pay the partner, and then you have those extra budgets, they pile up, right? Offline actions here, offline actions there, agent here and there. So there's always this money, which is of course very hard to get out and invest in it. But the moment is really worth it when you see return on it. And I think the return that you really see, actual return, is the damages claim. There's only a few countries in the world that luckily, if of course we are successful in combining online, offline, finding a person, investigating, raiding and arresting, which we had for several brands we did and we won and we got these people. The most important part is the damages, and the return on investment comes in when, of course, sometimes in order to maybe get a reduced sentence or a lighter sentence, or maybe, you know, like not to be so harsh on you, what these people do, of course, by lots of negotiating, you win back some big chunks of compensation based, of course, what has been found on amount of production, how big your factory was. I think this is a very key indicator of very tangible, what I call it, because you see it, because it's what you invested, sometimes twice, 3 times, 4 times the amount you invested in it.
Can I quickly jump in? Yes. And I try to make it as quick as possible. There are two approaches. The online costs are easy because they are quantifiable. They are to be checked. You pay a monthly fee and you have a contract. And in the monthly contract, say you have to take down X amount of delistings. You have to send me a monthly report so I can look at it. Is the money that I invest in the online protection worth it? In our case, it is absolutely worth it. The tricky part is the offline. Because the offline, it starts with how much does it cost? £20,000. What are the prospects? Medium to maybe, 30%. Meaning, so you want me to invest £20,000 and I don't know if you find the counterfeiter and if they go to prison? Yes. So you make a decision. You never know the outcome. So this is not really quantifiable in advance. You don't know what you invest. You don't know that, did you get a return on investment? Very quickly to the compensations. It is a bit of a slippery slope because, of course, and especially in China, you sort of get a card out of jail. You pay your way out of prison. So you raid a warehouse. The guy who is in the prison cell or in the police department, he's not the producer. He's not the boss of the producers. He's the guy who works in the warehouse. So he starts negotiating with the police. He said, okay, for £20,000, we let you out. The lawyer calls the boss. The boss calls the £20,000. The person leaves the police cell, but the counterfeiter continues counterfeiting. Of course, I got £20,000 back, which I appreciate, but I didn't get rid of the counterfeiter. So this is a little bit of slippery slope with this compensation system, and on top of it, it's a bit of a, I don't know, it's a bit of a Chinese way of doing things or not. I mean, also I think in the West you can bail yourself out, and but what actually is, you don't really get the you don't really get the person you want to target. You don't stop the counterfeiter with the compensation. But fair enough, you have money available for the next for the next case.
Because sometimes you need more action. So to catch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, several one of them until you go to the source. In order, you need to go more of them until you reach, let's say, the big fish. Let's call it to fry the big fish. We need, unfortunately, go through lots of little fishes. And this is how the way it goes. In order to get there, there is a lot of effort, of course, a lot of budget. Some of them...
And time.
Yes, of course. You need, unfortunately, to get that, one needs to invest lots of money, of course, we admit that, but that's the goal of it. Eventually, after several ones, we're gonna get to the goal that we are actually all aiming for, to finding who is really behind it. But it is, of course, slippery slope, as you said. There are so many out there nowadays, so many fabrics, so many sources, and it just has to be more of a hands-on approach. Go online, go offline, make sure you're covered, make sure you're doing all the steps that you needed in order to maintain control.
Yeah, but at least, Julia and Otmar, I think that we see a lot, of course, of report about ROI connected to online activities. And in my opinion, but I would be interested in knowing your opinion as well, these data are always hypothetical, because it's true, you take down a website or some listings on Amazon or wherever on a marketplace, but you never know if behind that there are free products or 3,000. I mean, and of course the price that you take to do this ROI comparison, it's always an average. It's it's full of assumptions, and it's never really analytical. What I really like of offline activities is that, I mean, you win it or lose it, and you get damages or not. And this is really practical example, and it's real. And it's true what you said, that probably you don't arrive at the beginning or immediately to the source of all the issues, but it's true that at least you can justify internally to your board that real activities have been taken and real actions have been successful. So piece by piece, and there are some countries which are very active on this, and I would say also quite fast compared to others. So I would like to know what you also think, Julia, about other clients' experience, and Otmar as well, about this ROI reporting that we always have to produce internally for our board.
I think when we produce the ROI on the online brand protection, it is good also to show to the boards, because there is a monthly amount that you invest in OBP, and even if it's just sometimes it's just merely analytical, most of the time those ROIs are already 2 or 3 times the budget you invest already in us. And even we just go very moderate on it, even if we just go on the minimal take some taken, only on the sum of the resellers. But what the ROI sometimes maybe doesn't even reflect in the depth is the phishing. How many of the fake domains, phishing campaigns, extensive campaigns that we have discovered in course, by just taking those down, that ROI is the most important one, because that is not just some selling of counterfeits. These are your potential clients being scammed, being phished, and their data being stolen, credit card and personal data. I think that is the highest ROI you can get by taking the web shops and the domains that have potentially phishing activities behind it. So in my previous experience, for all the clients that we usually just do ROI reports, just based on some assumptions of what we potentially think we took down, we actually create them based on the listing, on takedown, on success, of how many actually repeated infringers were there and how many of those did not repeat it themselves anymore. Those are the numbers they want to see. Cleaner images, lesser listings, lesser money potentially invest with time, the less you have there, and those show them potential value behind it. This is how much I paid, this is what I got, and this is what actually makes a difference. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Otmar, if that's the ROI that actually plays.
Yeah, no, I think that what you budget into the online protection, I think this is today's standard in I don't know, I'm talking for one fashion company, but I think generally also for other companies, online brand protection, you need to monitor the World Wide Web. It's not only counterfeiting; it's about people who use your name, people who even register your name in certain countries. This is just something a company needs to invest. And this is, as we said, this is a reasonable budget. What your return investment is let's say, okay, I use the word okay. When it becomes a bit more tricky is these offline cases that, well, we all know how much lawyers cost, so this is more the tricky part. The online, I personally could only say if I would have to give how do you say, an assessment to our collaboration with Questel, you say, yes, of course, we achieved good results, and what we invest, we have a good return on this investment, and the online is an ongoing process anyway. You can't get away with it. You can't say I'm not interested in it. Especially in our case, we have partners who are sort of who are franchisee partners. We can't say we don't care about counterfeits. They would say, like, you have to, you are the brand owner, you need to care. So this is just something, brand protection teams are crucial for fashion companies, I think, in the environment we find ourselves in.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, I mean, my point was exactly to highlight the importance of the activity, but also the importance of checking the data properly, because it's true that sometimes we speak with brand owners and they are just interested in number of listings taken down, for example, or unlimited cases they want to see per month or per week. And I think that the right approach is also to make sure that you prioritize. As you said, Otmar, you have to monitor worldwide, and of course, a lot of platforms, marketplaces, apps, and so on. But you also need to decide which battles you want to fight against. And I think that, Julia, what you just mentioned about phishing, it's a kind of interesting angle, because it's true that not all companies are really focused on the phishing activities.
Yes, that's true. Not everybody thinks that as that big of an issue. They think that is most issue of maybe some technology company, cybersecurity. Those are more the one potentially targeted banks, financial structure, where you can get major financial gain out of phishing out the data of the customer. But they forget you can phish the data out of a teenager who uses the card of her mother. who's trying to buy a necklace for £40 and gets scammed for thousands. So phishing is something sometimes very underestimated, and I think not really understood completely how dangerous that gets. And I think they should a little bit put more value to that, because phishing can target us, can target anybody. So phishing is not just for big corporations. So it's to be, my opinion, has to put a little bit more light on it.
Thank you. Looking at the time, we've finished the time, unfortunately, but I would like to continue
just looked
to
at the
discuss
third
with
slide.
you for hours.
Out of 10 slides first, okay.
Yeah, and polls and questions, wherever.
Yes.
So I would like to thank you a lot, Otmar, because it has been really interesting to discuss with you. You
Well,
gave
we are
great
very welcome.
insights.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, it was really great.
I had a good 45 minutes.
We will ask you again to join our webinars. Yes. And of course, I've seen that some of you posted questions, so we will reply directly via email in the next days. Of course, great talking to you, Julia. Your experience and dedication is very well perceived. I guess you can really feel that brand protection is part of your DNA. Yes. I would say.
I love what I do. Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks a lot. Thanks everyone. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion, and maybe we will organize another webinar to go through the other 10 slides we had for you.
For sure.
So thanks a lot. We see each other in the next webinar, and of course, follow us on our channels. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.